Hello, I'm Zaccura and welcome back to my channel. And today, I'm doing the Draw This Again challenge. Again. A couple months back, I posted an old sketchbook walkthrough video, and in that video I said... Ooh, I was thinking about doing a redraw of this. Would you guys like to see that? Draw This Again challenge for this? And so here we are. Time to draw this again, using the same pencil I used 5 years ago. Hey, it's HD audio voiceover Zaccura. So yes, I am actually doing a video I mentioned in a previous video. I do that all the time and then I never actually make the video. This is monumental, people. Anyway, today's video, as mentioned, is a Draw This Again challenge. I am taking an old piece of art that I drew a long time ago and I'm trying to redraw it now. And the point of this challenge is to show yourself, and everyone else of course, just how much you've improved over the years. Because artists tend to be our own biggest critics, and it's good to take a second to really slap yourself in the face and say, hey, look at how good you are. You're so much better than you were before. I did do a Draw This Again challenge video earlier this year where I redrew a portrait of Loki from 2015. And today's piece that I'm redrawing is also from 2015, but it is a traditional piece rather than a digital piece. And I figured, unlike with the Loki redraw where I ended up changing the style from the original, I added color, I turned it into a painting when the original one was more of a sketch or a drawing. This time I wanted to limit myself to the exact same pose and style and tools that I used 5 years ago to draw the original piece. Because sure, I could go make a big ol' fancy detailed illustration now using this same Armor Angel character and be like, hey, look at how awesome I am at drawing now. But that isn't necessarily a totally fair comparison because I didn't have all the same tools back then that I do now. Or even if I did, maybe I didn't really know how to use them, or I just didn't use them at all. And even though, yes, doing a big fancy illustration using the tools that you use now and applying all the new knowledge you have does show how far you've come and how far you've grown in terms of learning new skills, but it doesn't necessarily show your improvement of old skills. The things that you used back then, in the olden days. And what a better way to truly judge just how much you as an artist and your eyes and understanding of illustration has improved than by being stuck using the same single pencil that you used 5 years ago. Now technically, I am not using 100% the exact same materials because the paper that I'm using is a sheet of Canson XL multimedia paper, because that is the closest thing to sketch paper of this size that I have at the moment. The original drawing was drawn in a sketchbook, so it was on sketch paper. But come on people, it's not a huge difference. Especially when you're just taking into account that I'm using a pencil, an HB pencil. So the drawing that I am redrawing does not have a name because I do not name my drawings by default. I'm kind of forced to name them when I upload them on like DeviantArt or Newgrounds. But most of the time I do not name my illustrations because that's not easy. But I am going to be referring to it as Armor Angel Lady because that's what she is, and that's pretty textbook along the lines of how I go about naming my illustrations. Anywho, it's been actually a very long time since I've done a full pencil illustration. I do still sketch in my sketchbook pretty regularly. I've kind of been neglecting the habit recently, but that's beside the point. But finished pieces of artwork, full illustrations that only use graphite pencil is something that I haven't done in months, if not years, because when you have access to all these delicious paints and pens and softwares that you actually know how to use, why limit yourself to just a pencil? At least that's how I am, because I like shiny things. If you guys have been following my work for a while, you know just how much I love experimenting and love branching out into all different styles and mediums and so forth. So I really love incorporating all of these different materials into my artwork. But I do know that graphite is a lot of professional artists' preferred medium. There are definitely a lot of artists out there that prefer drawing in pencil, so it's not necessarily purely a matter of being limited to something, like not having access to tools, but at least in my case, the more tools I have access to, that means the more tools I gotta use. But pencil is really where I have my roots, as I'm guessing most artists do. For the first 2 years of drawing, from 2014 to 2015, I pretty much drew with pencil exclusively, and really just one pencil. This one specific pencil that you see me using in this video. This is my magic pencil. I've had this pencil for years, and I don't know why I've never lost it, but I haven't, so it must be meant to be. And it just has regular HB lead. If I were to do more pencil illustrations, I would probably now prefer to use a pencil set that has varying hardness in its lead, in its graphite, so that it's easier to get the different changes in value, tonal value. It can be a little hard to get that contrast going when you're only using one pencil, but that's how I did all of my pieces in the past. And again, I want to get back to those roots and see just how much I've improved by using the exact same tools. I also decided not to change the pose from the original piece. My first impulse was to draw a much more dynamic pose, something actiony and epic. I mean, come on, she looks so badass. But again, I wanted to limit myself to essentially be drawing the exact same drawing I drew before. And that meant sticking to this front-facing pose. And I'm actually so glad that I did, because it really refreshed me on just how unexpectedly difficult a straight front-facing standing pose is to draw. It's really ironic, because a front-facing standing pose is the pose that like every single artist tries to draw first when they're new. It is just what our brains use as the default human form. It's the easiest to think of and to imagine in your head, but drawing it can actually be a bit tricky, and the reason is because of symmetry. I'm sure if you're watching this, then you're probably familiar with the dreaded other eye syndrome. The very, very common issue of not being able to draw the other eye to match the first eye that you drew. Drawing a balanced front-facing standing pose is like that, but for the whole body. You now not only have to worry about each body part being proportional, but also symmetrical, or mostly symmetrical, to the opposing side of the body. And even the most experienced professional artists, at least ones that I've seen, often tend to still have a strong side and a weak side when it comes to drawing symmetrical figures. And I think the reason for that is because of really simple factors, like our eyes are just not perfect. We're human beings, not machines. Also, being right-handed or left-handed can make a really big difference. For me, I've noticed that I tend to prefer drawing the left side of things, especially when it comes to the human body. So the left side of the head, the left arm, the left leg, or at least, left to me, because technically if we're talking about the character, then that would be their right arm and leg because they're facing me. But let's not get things complicated. The left side of the page. If I'm drawing a 3/4 view portrait, I instinctually want to draw it facing towards the left. The only exception to this leftness that I have is with the eyes. It's easier for me to draw the right eye for some reason. But everything else, it doesn't matter if the person is facing forward or backward or sideways, I always draw whatever is on the left first, and it's usually a lot easier and comes out a lot better than the stuff on the right. And this has often caused me to unintentionally draw my characters lopsided leftwards, meaning it leans, or most of the weight or the center of balance is more towards the left. And though it may not be easily noticeable in my work, because balance is really important to me in illustration, so I pay a lot of attention to it, and I also do purposefully mix up my character's poses and positions so that I don't get stuck with like all of my portraits looking the same. It is still there, and it's apparent to me especially, but it is there, and it's really difficult for me to not do it. Even though I know that I do it, I can't help myself. And I've even noticed that often, like unconsciously, I will incorporate or hide this leaning towards the left by making it intentional in the illustration. So if I draw someone standing, I'll put their center of balance on one leg. I'll make them leaning on one leg. And guess which leg that's gonna be. Frankly, I just went through my illustrations to find examples to put in this part of the video, and I was kind of shocked at just how often I do this. So yeah, it's hard to fight like your unconscious part of your brain and your eyeballs. And you know, when we circle back to what I was originally talking about, which is the difficulty of drawing a balanced front-facing pose, I often struggle with getting the character to look like both legs are standing firmly on the ground. 9 out of 10 times, I'm telling you. On my first sketch through, like when I'm just getting those like initial shapes of the body down, I will draw the person leaning on the left leg, even when in my mind I am trying to draw someone standing firmly on both feet. And because I drew the person leaning on the left leg, I can't get that darn right leg to match because the center of balance is already wrong, or at least it's not in the center where I think it is. Working digitally definitely can help a lot with symmetry because you have the opportunity to flip your canvas whenever you want to, and when you do that, it helps you see where you are having balance issues. I mean, you can even like use like copy and paste tools to really get that symmetry perfect. Questionably cheating, but hey, you know, you do what you gotta do. I won't tell anybody. But with traditional art, it can be a lot harder to deal with. I actually did lift my paper and flip it around in front of a window a couple times so I could see that reversed image, and I did that a couple times throughout, which is a good tip, by the way. If you work traditionally, try flipping it around and putting a light behind it so you can see the flipped image, and you're probably gonna hate what that flipped image looks like, but it will help you. But I'm telling you, like, even with digital work, I still put that darn center of balance towards the left, which, okay, let's be honest, it's not a huge problem. Once you get your work to a certain point where most people don't notice, or it doesn't look wrong, doesn't look like a mistake, then like, you're all good. But you know, I like being intentional in my work. I don't like doing things by accident, so it irks me. I am irked. The pencil ain't the master of me, I'm the master of the pencil. Put that on a shirt. So I did actually spend more time on the initial rough sketch than I first thought I would because I really wanted to get that symmetry down. And also, the lengthy time and difficulty that I had with this piece also might be due to the fact that this was one of the first things that I drew coming out of my Pintober challenge, and they're all digital, they're fairly simple, and very line work and color based. And let me tell you, after a month of drawing pin designs, your brain just starts to forget the existence of little things like, oh, I don't know, shading. A traditional pencil illustration of a full body armored angel lady is probably the polar opposite of what I had been drawing previously, but hey, that just adds to the challenge. You gotta be ready for whatever this life will throw you. See, I don't know what I'm really talking about. Anywho, although I was keeping to the same pose as the original drawing, I did obviously try to fix some things. For one, I separated her feet a bit to have a stronger stance, because I don't know if you've ever tried standing with your feet completely together, but is awkward. And with all that armor, I don't think so. Another thing that I only noticed once I began drawing the armor was that the original armor angel gal has 0 hips. Like, pelvis? No, that's not a thing. And it actually reminded me that this was a habit that I did a lot back then. I often drew people with no hips and like really wide shoulders. I think it came from the fact that the thing that got me into drawing in the first place was Dragon Ball Z. And if you've seen the series or read the manga, you know that the status quo body type in that show is an inverted triangle, which does make sense when you take into account like massively bulky muscles. It can make your upper body wider than your hips, especially more on male body types, but that shape just kind of became a bad habit of mine, and one that I ended up transferring to female body types and body types without massively bulky muscles. And what happens when you do that is you end up with a person with 0 hips. And I found this kind of interesting, in particular with this Armor Angel lady piece, because this was a piece that I was super proud of at the time. I thought I did a really, really good job. But now that I was redrawing it, I began realizing that one of the main reasons I felt it looked decent was because it felt proportional. And a big reason for that was actually because of the armor around her hips. The fact that the armor stuck out a bit around her hip area makes up for the fact that, in reality, she has non-existent hips. And it fools your eyes into thinking you're seeing a proportionate body. And I realized as I started adding the armor on top of my new body, it started to look a bit like a tutu because it stuck out so much when it was around her normal sized hips. I actually ended up making those like flaps, if that's what they are, of her armor that are hanging around her hips. I made them a little bit shorter than the original. In the original, it seems to go down to almost her mid-thigh, but with the new version, I kind of just like made it just a little bit, so it doesn't look like a metal dress. Some other things I altered was the pose of her hands. Rather than having both hands on top of the hilt of the sword, I had one on top of the hilt and one holding the handle. That was really just a decision to add some interest, so the whole body isn't totally symmetrical. I find that adding asymmetrical aspects to poses or even facial expressions or hairdos or whatever just instantly adds a sense of life to a character. I also made her wings much larger because the original ones felt a little too small, and I also made them bowing forwards, partly so I could fit the entire size of the wings on the paper, but also because it's just so much cooler, am I right? So, the way I treat pencil illustrations is very similar to how I treat colored illustrations in terms of steps. I first start with the sketch, then I would do the line work, then I would add the color. And in this case, I start with the sketch, then I clean up the sketch and darken the lines, which is the equivalent to doing line work, and then I add the textures and shading, which is equivalent to adding color. Working in this way takes just as long, if not longer, to do than a colored illustration because I tend to be very messy in the sketch phase, so having to clean up my sketch without the aid of just like lining over it and erasing all the messiness, it takes me some time, I gotta tell you. A light box would probably help because I could just do a messy sketch and then grab another piece of paper and just do a clean sketch on top of it. But I didn't have no light boxes back then. I still don't have a light box at this moment. So I had to just do it old school style with my little like school eraser. And ta-da, da-da-da-da-da-da. yeah, there we have it. Armor Angel gal from 2015 and her revamped, redrawn 2020 version. All in all, I really like how the new one looks. I made her a lot more confident and strong looking, like she's a seasoned armored angel person. She also looks a little like my OC Saurus, mainly due to the hair, which I did mention in the sketchbook walkthrough video that this 2015 Armor Angel illustration was where I actually came up with the hairstyle that my OC Saurus ended up stealing. So that's a fun connection that nobody asked to hear at this moment. And that wraps up this video. So thank you guys so much for watching and listening and spending some of your day with me. If you enjoyed this video, please be sure to hit that thumbs up and subscribe. Also hit that little bell so you don't miss out on any upcoming videos. And before you go, do leave a comment down below letting me know, how did you like this redraw? Have you ever tried this challenge? If you did, what did you think of it? And just whatever else, man. I always love hearing from you guys. I cannot believe it is already the end of November. That month just flew by. I have been so crazy busy lately. I've been working on commissions, and I had a Black Friday, Cyber Monday sale thingy, and I made some new stationery products. Little plug. Then there was Pintober, which ended, and the winner has been decided, but I still haven't really had the time to fully get the whole manufacturing thing going. And Thanksgiving has also just passed too, here in the US. I hope all of you in the US had a really good holiday. I know I did. I'm still eating leftovers. They're amazing, what can I say? I mean, there's a certain beauty involved in a leftover Thanksgiving turkey sandwich. But now it's December and I still have so much to do. So if this narration sounds kind of scrambled, it's because my brain has been on constant multitask mode for the past like 4 or 5 weeks. But I am also so grateful and feel so blessed at the same time to be busy and also doing a lot of artsy things, which is, you know, my passion. Also, we're at like 8,000 subscribers here on this channel. What the actual heck, you guys? Thank you so much for all of your support. But anyway, I'll be back soon with another very important video. Hopefully it's important. And until next time, stay awesome, stay inspired, always. See ya!